Hey all. So the little VK Brocky Director. So it's got the original L31 engine. So they have the bigger valve heads, bits and pieces, bit of a different cam. Nothing special, but we need to make sure they run well. So this one here, I'll turn the camera around in the middle in a minute. So this particular engine won't start in the mornings, so when it's cold or when the engine's not at running temperature naturally. And we've got what's called the old run-on or dieseling. All right, so when you turn the ignition off, you'd expect the engine to stop, but back in the day with the carbies, there was a problem and it was called dieseling or run-on. And basically there was a few reasons why that happened. The biggest one was the idle adjustment was set too high. So while the engine was slowing down, it was just enough vacuum to just draw a little bit of fuel in. And even though you've cut the ignition off, so the spark plugs aren't sparking, there was always hot spots in a few engines, especially with these pistons with a lot of carbon buildup. They really retain a lot of heat. And it was enough to ignite the fuel. So you'll have 2 or 3 cylinders coughing and spluttering, and the engine sound like a diesel when it was trying to turn off. All right, I think most of us have heard that. Probably a lot haven't. You probably never will. Anyway, so we've got to fix that. It's not ideal. Valves don't like it. So it's crap anyway. We've got to fix it. All right. So the idle's way too high. I know that. This is an auto. It does have a very mild cam. Usually if we've got a high duration cam, we want to be around 1000 RPM. This one definitely not. So we should still be able to keep around the 650, 700 RPM in drive idle. So when the transmission's in drive, okay? If it was manual, we can bring it to 600, 650, whatever you like, really. Whatever the engine's happy with, and the strongest vacuum. Because remember, when we're tuning, if you go back to my other videos, when we're tuning, we want all the time, we want to keep to as close to 1 stoik, all right, which is 14.7, which is the ratio, air-fuel ratio, okay? So at idle, there's no reason why we can't get that in any engine, except for the really high duration cams. You can get close, but usually we've got to give them a little bit more fuel to stay alive, especially in drive, even with a loose converter. But I'm not going to go into that. This is basic stuff, all right? So the first thing we'll do is I'm going to set the idle to where it should be, and then second most important thing is we need to check the timing. All right, so we'll check the timing at idle. So I'm going to set this engine in drive to 700 RPM, and then I'm going to check the timing. So I basically want the timing to be between 8 and 10 is plenty. Look, if this was a performance cam, a total timing should be around 30 to 33 degrees. Static timing, so the engine at idle and looking at the balancer with your timing light, anywhere between sort of 15 and 20, and the thing will run fine, all right? So we don't need to be there at all, okay? So we want to set it basically to factory specs. And then once the idle's done and the timing is right, once we do the timing, it may bring the engine RPM up or down. So then we're going to readjust for idle. Once we've done that, we will put the vacuum gauge onto the intake manifold below the throttle blades. And we're going to adjust the idle air fuel mixture with the vacuum gauge. Now, keeping in mind, this is a very mild cam. So there might be a little bit of, slightest bit of overlap. So our needle on the gauge might just flutter a little bit, and it's very hard to tune an engine at idle with a lumpy cam. So we usually try and get it by ear or with an O2 meter, all right? And that's basically the way to do that. But any other engine with a standard duration cam, you should be able to get in inches of mercury on your vacuum gauge very cleanly, 17 to 20 inches of mercury at idle. And yeah, so we'll adjust. There's 2 screws. This is a quadrijet, all right? So I'll turn the camera around now. So basically I like to use a big face gauge, all right? because you can see it's more accurate. I'll tell you what, I'm never going to get those stupid clear roof sheets, the roof lights in my shed ever again. Anyway, so big gauge, more accurate. You can see what the needle was doing. Okay, so we got that. We know we have a very good charged battery, and also I have a timing light. All right, so my trusty snap-on one. It's going to give me one RPM reading, and also I can check secondly the advance or retard on the timing on the balancer, and I can set it digitally as well. So we are within 0.25 of a degree. Do we need that? No, it's not a racing car. We're not running ethanol, blah, 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 so, or methanol. So we'll just do it the standard. So what I'll do, I'm going to take that off. I always tune the basics with this off because it's easier. And then when we do the air-fuel ratio, we're going to put the air cleaner back on because the engine needs to be simulated for normal everyday driving. All right, so when we have an air filter on an intake, there's going to be a restriction of for air. So basically, if we tune the engine and then put the filter back on, RPM might drop a little bit because there's a restriction. Okay, so anyway, I will stop and then I'll come back to you. 1 second. All right, so we're back. Hopefully you can hear me. It's a bit noisy. So we're running at idle, okay? I've actually got it in neutral just to see what the neutral RPM is. Now, the choke's not on, but look at that. We're nearly at 1,000 RPM. Way too high. So I'll just turn it off and we'll see if it diesels. Let's just try that. Did you hear that, guys? It actually it dieseled on. Horrible. Starts well every time. Okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to check the timing. But in order to do that, I need to get the RPM back down to about 650, 700. So I'll just get a screwdriver. The trusty tool. All right, now on the Quadrajet, your idle adjustment's here. Now, missing from this position here is what was called the anti-dieseling solenoid. And I'll explain how that works after. Let's just get this base done and we'll go from there. So I'm going to have to turn this screw anti-clockwise. Until we get to about 650. So we're coming down, half a turn at a time. Down, prices are down. All right. Okay, getting close. So look, 700 to 800 is where I like to be with an auto. It's just I find it smoother for all the small block stuff. Some people are going to say, Lee, you're full of crap. Well, you know what? There's always going to be someone with 10 different ideas. I've been doing this long enough now. Will I accept someone else's info? Bloody oath, I like extra info. I still love learning. But you know what? I've found my way of doing things and it works. So if you stick to your way and it works, why do you need to listen to somebody else? You're just confusing it. There's no point being confused in life. Life's short. Do it simple. All right. Now this engine sounds much nicer already. Okay. We are hanging plus or minus sort of 10, 20 RPM. Now let's check the timing. Okay, so our flashometer. We'll go down there. Now this is going to be really hard, guys, for me to show you. But if you can see down there, can you see that red wheel spinning? See where the light's flashing? Okay, right down there, the little red wheel. That's the harmonic balancer. I'm not going to be able to zoom in on that, or zoom, shall I say. I'm just going to check it, and I'll tell you what the reading was. Just bear with me. Okay, so we are when it comes to the ignition timing, we're right on the money. I'm seeing 8 degrees, which to me is perfect. 8 to 10 with a very small cam is perfect for static timing. 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 on the money. We are beautiful. Okay, so we're good. So we've got a nice engine idle. We do not have to check or change the distributor timing. It's very, very responsive. Now, next one is this one. Now, we can see there that we are pulling approximately 10 inches of mercury, and it's a little bit erratic. Now, I would expect erratic movement at the needle with a lumpy cam. This, no. So what we're going to do is I'm going to adjust the idle fuel air ratio changing needles. So the air fuel needle, okay, at idle, which is, there's 2 of them on the quadrijet. There's one right down here, and then there's another one on the other side, and that will adjust your idle air fuel mixture. So what we want to do there is we want to turn that screw half a turn in at a time until we get the right movement and the stability on this gauge. Okay, so what we basically want to do, like in my other videos, is that needle there, we want it to reach the highest vacuum reading we can, and also we want it to be as stable as possible. So remember, a standard engine cam, you will have a very, very good high vacuum and very, very stable needle. You have mild to wild cams, forget it. You're going to have to tune it via an O2 gauge or meter, okay, for the tailpipe. All right, so what I'll do, I'll put the gauge somewhere where we can see, because I have to hold the phone, unfortunately, and then use the other one, the other hand, for tuning with my screwing driver. So here we go. Try and put this somewhere nice. All right, so I'm going to do the left screw first. So what we want to do is we need to find out where we are, guys. All right, so if I screw the needle in and the engine dies, then we know we're running too lean. So we need to back it out, all right? So I just got to change the screwdriver. Just bear with, this is too long. All right, try this one. Very awkward to get to. Just bear with me, guys. I've got to get another screwdriver. Hang on. Alright, guys. So, got the gauge. I'm going to adjust the left screw until we get a movement on the needle. If the needle drops, then we're leaning it out. It's not enough fuel, so we have to come back out, which richens the system. So I'm just going to do my thing. I'll let you watch. I'm going to adjust and listen, and I'm going to adjust the left and the right idle control screw, right, until this needle is the highest it can be, and also it's stable. It's the stability of the needle. Because the engine is purring beautifully. Okay, so bear with me. Hopefully this turns out all right. my other special screwdriver. Alright, so I've had to change to a smaller screwdriver because it was hard to get to the needle because of all the hoses. So here we go again. Watch this needle. I'm screwing the needle in, which is leaning the system. So the RPM should drop so we know where we are, and then we'll come back out. Okay, what have you noticed? We've got a very erratic needle. I'm going to go in a little bit more and we'll see what that needle does. It should get to the point where it's going to start dropping below 10. Alright guys, look at that. This engine's becoming very unstable. The idle is now. Check my timing light. The timing has now dropped to 650. Alright, so we're leaning the engine. So now what we'll do to make this needle come up and the engine more stable, I need to give it more fuel at idle. Alright, so I'm going to screw the left idle screw out half a turn and wait 20 seconds and see how we go. Okay guys, so look at that, so I've gone out half a turn, okay, so we've enriched the idle circuit. Now have a look at that. Alright, engine RPM is up to where we were. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep adjusting it for a quarter of a turn counterclockwise, alright, anti-clockwise, until this needle is the most stable possible. Alright, then we have done the left needle. Look at that guys. We're sort of around the 13 inches of mercury, which is really, really good. Alright, so let me go another quarter of a turn to the point where that possibly, potentially goes more, and to the point where the engine idle peaks and doesn't drop. If the engine idle starts to drop, we are starving it of fuel or giving it too much. In this case, it'll be too much, basically, and that's when we can foul plugs and all that sort of thing. But we're very close. I reckon, I'm going to guesstimate here, by experience, another quarter of a turn anti-clockwise, so richening it, and we're going to be good for the left. Let's go. Okay, I think that's it. All right, so that's that side. Now we'll proceed to the passenger side and see how we go. Very hard to see this one. We've got this hose in the way. Sorry for the head and sorry for the bald spot. So firstly, I'm turning in. So we're going to get to the point where we're leaning and the engine RPM will come down. We kind of just want to know where we are. Well, I heard the RPM change. Let's look at the timing light and see what happened. It's dropped a little bit. So I'll go another quarter of a turn in, so we're making it leaner. And then we're going to come back out and do the same thing. We want to balance it. Alright, I went in another quarter of a turn. What's happened here? We've dropped below 10, engine's erratic, and it's dropped RPM. Have a look at this. We're pretty low now. So now I'm going to go outwards with the screw to richen the system, and we're going to get to the point where we've got the highest vacuum reading and the engine's at a highest idle possible, and we'll go from there. to behind all these bloody hoses. What are you seeing, guys? Is that needle getting better? Sounds like it. What's it doing? Well, look at that. We're nearly up to 12 to 13 inches of mercury again. I'll go another quarter of a turn out. Has that gotten any better? So that's 13 inches of mercury and it's quite stable. I'll go another quarter and we'll see. I think we've maxed out, but let's see. I think she's maxed out, guys. Have a look at the timing light to have a look at the RPM. So we're a little bit higher, which means that we're rich in the system to stabilise it, but our base RPM has come up. So then what we do to counteract that is we adjust the idle screw, okay? So what I'll do is I'll do that exactly. Just watch this RPM. I'm going to adjust the idle screw, which I previously showed you, which is always the one on the throttle arm, where your throttle cable goes. Now I'm going to go a quarter of a turn anti-clockwise, which will bring the throttle blades closer. Now remember, we want to keep it sort of like 700 to 800 RPM. I'm happy with that. Alright, so what I'll do now is I'm going to put it into drive and we'll see how far the RPM drops. It's going to drop a little bit. We may have to bump it up to 100 RPM. Some people like to tune it in drive. I don't, because it makes not much difference, and that's going by experience. So let's try it in drive. She's a little bit low. We'll have to readjust idle stop screw. Until we're back to 700. We've got to go a little bit more. Right guys, I'm happy with that. Alright, it's in drive now. Okay, perfect. It's how we go. It's as hard as it gets. So we've done base timing, we've done the idle set screw, and more importantly we've done the vacuum. Alright, so we're done. I'm going to test drive it and I think we're going to be pretty good. I'll come back to you. Bloody skylights. I'll come back to you once I've gone for a drive, and we'll do any fine tuning if we need to. I don't think we will though. And that's it. So any questions, you know how to get me. We'll go from there. All right, guys. Hope I didn't confuse you, and let me know if I've done something wrong. All right. Cheerio.